The world economy has started its transformation from the era of fossil fuels to that of renewable energy. And this energy transition doesn't just make sense for the health and welfare of our planet and the population, but it also makes sound financial sense. And Gelion is thrilled to be playing a part in assisting this transformation to fulfill our mission to help supply clean energy and water for everybody. And in the process, meeting several of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We started Gelion with the inspired idea that stationary storage of renewable energy could be safer, cheaper, and more robust than current technologies. Our non-flow zinc bromide batteries will offer industry the opportunity to embrace renewable energy with confidence. Next slide. Gelion was founded by Professor Thomas Maschmeyer out of the University of Sydney in 2016. Professor Maschmeyer is a serial offender when it comes to founding companies. He started 6, 3 of them have got valuations in excess of 150 million sterling. So certainly got a track record there. And we were, the technology was developed inside Sydney University, and as is the model that they often use, it was spun out into a standalone company with Sydney Uni taking equity. Thomas is the recipient of a number of awards. Last year in 2020, he won the Australian Prime Minister's prize for the top prize for science innovation. And he's also ranked in the top 15 world leading chemists. So a really inspiring guy to have behind the company. Next slide. So what was the idea and what were we founded around? So zinc bromide chemistry, the use of zinc bromide for batteries has been around for about 120 years. And the traditional format has been in what's called a flow battery. So a flow battery, as you can see the diagram in the left there, it's a battery that consists of tanks and pumps and pipe work, and the zinc bromide electrolyte is circulated around across a membrane, and that works as a battery, and you can see charging the light. And it's a really good chemistry. The zinc bromide chemistry, you'll hear a bit more about this later, is a very, very good chemistry. But the problem with flow batteries is they're sort of a mini chemical engineering plant. They have a lot of moving parts, a lot of componentry, and they're very, very hard to scale and to bring costs down. So Thomas was involved as a professor in consulting with a company that was doing zinc bromide flow. And after he did that work for them, he gave it some thought and figured that he could actually transition that into a non-flow format, what you can see on the right. So taking all the advantages of the zinc bromide chemistry, but removing the disadvantages and putting it into a non-flow battery, similar format to a lead acid battery that you find in your car. Thank you. In terms of the team, Thomas, you've heard about. Steve Mann, our chairman, is also the chairman of Armstrong Energy. In the UK, they're a renewable energy company. Myself, Andrew Grimes, I'm a chemical engineer by training, background, working in aviation specialty chemicals. I stepped back from that after running an international company for 13 years and did study sustainability at the University of Sydney, and that's how I met Thomas, and the rest is history, so to say. Amit Gupta, our CFO, absolute blue chip background, KPMG, Deloitte's, come across to us and doing a fantastic job. And Stuart Rayner, our commercial director, 14 years commercialising green technology. Thank you. So in terms of who we are and what we are, we listed, some of you may know, we listed only a few days ago, Tuesday last week. We raised 22 million sterling on the AIM, and that's going to take us through to an EBITDA break-even point in 2024. And the company has 2 divisions. The one on the left, the stationary energy storage that we were founded around, based on the zinc bromide tech, the zinc bromide tech is particularly good for that sort of application. So storage that isn't mobile, essentially, anything from something in your house up to very large solar and wind farm support. And that's an enormously strong theme. The market's growing by 24%. And we have a low-cost, safe and recyclable alternative to the incumbents of lithium ion and lead acid. So that's the first, and you'll hear a bit more about that later. The second part of our group, the mobile energy group, and this is a performance additives group that are developing performance additives to improve the performance of lithium-based batteries. And look, if stationary energy storage is a strong theme, mobile energy is even stronger. And we have two separate lines of development. One, developing silicon nanoparticles, which are being used in greater and greater quantities to improve the energy density of lithium ion. We have a patented technology to make these ultra cheap, orders of magnitude cheaper than the existing products, which are very difficult and expensive to make. We also have development around lithium sulfur. Lithium sulfur batteries hold a lot of promise. They're low weight. If up to 3 times the energy density of lithium ion, which would open up e-aviation. Problem is they just don't last long enough. And we've developed technology that can increase the cycle life up to 5-fold. So instead of sort of being, only getting 100, 150 cycles out of the batteries, we can get up to 500, and you've got a real commercial product at that point. So that's the divisions of the company, and we're bringing all 3 lines to market in 2023 is when we're first expecting to commercialize all 3 of those. Next slide. So if we jump now into the zinc bromide stationary energy storage part, we've developed, as I said earlier, a non-flow zinc bromide battery with architecture and the way it's put together is very, very similar to a lead acid battery. And what that allows us to do is team up with lead acid battery manufacturers around the world, all of who are seeing their market share diminish and are looking for the next big thing. So we have 2 strategic partnerships already, working on others. One in India with HBL, a listed company over in India, the 3rd largest company there, and one in Australia, a company called Battery Energy. And we're already starting to put in capacity into the Australian plant to start building our product. And one of the great things about this model is it keeps our capex cost down. A lithium ion plant for a gigawatt hour of capacity up to $125 million. For us, as low as 16 mil. So a really big advantage by accessing that enormous infrastructure that's out there already in the lead acid world. We have 400 megawatt hours of offtakes already signed, and which is about $100 million US dollars. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later. Thank you. Next slide. So the market, look, I think with COP26 just passed, everybody knows that this is a really important market and also how big it needs to be and is already. The market's growing by 24%. This graph only shows out to 2025, but look, out to 2030, the research done by Wood Mackenzie shows that the market is enormous, approaching a terawatt hour by 2030. The other part of the market that is almost double the size of what you can see there is the off-grid market. So the graph there is the grid connect, size of the grid connect battery market, but the off-grid market is about double that size. So it's an enormous opportunity, hundreds of billions of US dollars of investment as we move through to 2025 and beyond. Thank you. So in terms of our advantages, the zinc bromide advantages over the existing technology, our product is low cost. We have cycle life in wind farm testing over 4,000 cycles, and we're aiming for 5,000 as a design aim. We use abundant raw materials, and we have a very, very robust chemistry, which means that the sort of safety systems that you have to wrap around lithium-ion batteries are not required for us. So it keeps our costs down on a levelized cost of energy stored and makes us very competitive, even at low manufacturing volumes. We're safe and high temperature tolerant, and this is a really, really important point. Customers, first question is often about cost. The second one is around safety. And if we have a look at the next slide, it's a little bit of a demonstration. We took one of our test batteries and put it on a hot plate. You can see the battery there is charging the light at 0. Now, if we could go to the next slide, we put the burner on underneath 600. It was an industrial burner, heated the hot plate up to 600 degrees. And you can see after 10 minutes, it's starting to smoke, electrolyte boiling, but the battery's still operating and the light's still going. We go to the next slide. This is after 30 minutes. The battery is starting to develop a Leaning Tower of Pisa effect there. You can see a little bit of smoke, but no fire, no spillage. There's a little bit of smoke, but that's still powering the light. And this is a really, really key advantage of our product. It will not catch fire. The zinc bromide electrolyte is actually a fire retardant. If we go to the next slide, This is a photo taken of an installation in Australia, where I'm from, only a few months ago, a 450 megawatt hour battery put in by Tesla. And this is the real problem with lithium, is that more and more fires, more and more people are saying, we won't use lithium in that application, we won't use lithium in that application, and more concern about that. So our robustness is a real advantage there. Next slide. Thank you. The next part, which is becoming more and more important, is the recyclability. So our batteries are put together like a lead acid battery, vertical parallel plates in a plastic casing. So very, very similar. And you may know lead acid batteries are recycled, above 95%, and that's where we can get to because of the way our batteries are put together. Lithium ion, on the other hand, with the thin film technology, recycling rates are very, very low. Maybe 2 to 5% at best. And that photo I showed you on the previous page, the Tesla installation, that is hundreds of shipping containers worth of batteries. And as these go out more and more and come to the end of their life, this question of recyclability is playing more and more. And that plays really strongly to in our favour, that we have no issue meeting the same sort of high levels of recyclability as lead acid does. And the last one is the robustness and abuse tolerant. One of the great things about our batteries, they can go to 100% charge, they can go to 0% charge. You can store them at 0 and then recharge them, a week or two later. Absolutely no problem. And this is the key thing that kills lithium ion and lead acid, that you have to be very careful about their state of charge. So this is a really key advantage of ours, and allows it to operate in environments where perhaps the levels of control aren't as good as they could be. Next slide. In terms of the technology evolution, some slides there from our early stage R&D in 2016 up to not our most recent tech, but the second to most recent tech. And look, this is a typical sort of journey that battery companies go on. You can see our round trip efficiency, RTE, is rising. We've got that up to above 87%. In fact, we've passed 90% with our round trip efficiency. Our batteries are getting more energy dense, they're getting cheaper, and they're getting larger. And that lead acid format that you can see in the top right hand thing, that's the format that we'll be going to market with, by putting them together in monoblocks and then building those monoblocks out into larger and larger systems to power what you'll see on the next slide. If we go to the next slide. So our batteries aren't just sitting in laboratories being tested. We've got them out into the field. They're out there, they're powering. You can see some photos there of our batteries powering pumping systems. On the bottom right-hand side, we've got the batteries powering desalination systems at Sydney Harbour there, with the water being desalinated. And then in the top right, we've got some light bench installations that have been running at Sydney University for nearly a year. So these products are out there, they're working well. Thank you. Next slide. In terms of our commercialization pathway, we sort of look at it in two horizons, if you like. And the first horizon for us is the installation sort of up to about 1 megawatt hour into environments that we think might uniquely suit our chemistry and our advantages. And Australia is a fantastic kindergarten, if you like, for batteries. We are a market for 9% of the world batteries, even though we're much smaller in terms of population. On the left-hand side, standalone power systems. This is a huge market in Australia. That there is a program to put in 10,000 standalone power systems to replace poles and wires. Because of the distances in Australia, it's actually cheaper to decommission the poles and wires and put in standalone power systems. And these are putting in, as I said, tens of thousands. Agriculture is a great application for us, and as is freshwater supply, the unique advantages of our product. The last one that's really interesting in Horizon 1 is around mining. The mining industry, a lot of dewatering there, a lot of pumping, a lot of remote applications. So we see huge opportunity for us in mining. And this is not just Australia, but Australia, as I said, is a great first place for us. If we go to the next slide, the Horizon 2, which is the much larger scale for us, 2024 and onwards, these are the same sort of as the Tesla photo that you saw, with our batteries going in to support large commercial industrial installations, supporting solar and supporting wind and utility grids. And that's the 2024 onwards. Next slide. Some of our alliances, in terms of our technology, we have technology partnerships with ICL, Israeli Chemical Limited, who supply our zinc bromide, as well as with the University of Sydney. And we have research work continuing to go on in terms of developing our next-gen products, the ones of the future. Our manufacturing, I spoke about, already got partnerships with HBL in India and Battery Energy in Australia. In terms of offtake MOUs, we have offtake MOUs with Armstrong in the UK, with WeGen in the Philippines, with Maya Resources, an ASX-listed company operating in Papua New Guinea. The other exciting news that I can't really share full details about is that we were chosen by one of the largest global renewable energy companies after a worldwide search for them to look at new battery tech that they want to test, and provided it passes their test, look to put out into the field. And we've been chosen, as one of 2 companies that are going to that next stage. So very, very exciting news that hopefully we can tell you a little bit more about that sometime in the not too distant future. Next slide. That's all for zinc bromide, the stationary energy storage. Just a couple brief slides about the performance additives part of our group. Next slide. So this graph here from Lux Research shows what is expected to be happening in the lithium battery world. So the dark on the left, standard lithium-ion batteries that are in your mobile phone, in your laptop and so on, are in the process of being phased out. And that process is expected to be finished by 2030. And they're being phased out by an advanced lithium ion. And Tesla and Panasonic have already gone public with their work on this. And basically, the advanced lithium ion has got these silicon nanoparticles that I mentioned earlier. And these silicon nanoparticles are a great sponge for the lithium ion. So the more silicon nanoparticles you can get to replace the graphite, the greater the energy density, and you can then drive the cost down as well. So you can see that expectation is that this market is going to be growing. We didn't invent silicon nanoparticles, but we did invent a method for manufacturing them is an order of magnitude cheaper than anybody else can do that. And we've got that patented, and we'll be bringing that to market for customer approvals next year. You can see the lithium sulfur, the teal color there. That's the expectation that lithium sulfur tech, once this issue of cycle life gets resolved by people like us with our additives, that's going to start penetrating the market. The last expectations around solid state batteries. I know we hear a lot about solid state batteries. It's a tech that's held a lot of promise, but until now, other than in very small applications, very, very difficult to get working. With our combination technology of silicon nanoparticles and on the cathode side, the sulfur additives, we can get energy densities matching the solid state with using existing battery manufacturing infrastructure, unlike the solid state manufacturing, which needs new factories. So if we go to the next slide, a little bit more detail here about lithium ion. So you can see the lithium ion, the energy density there, gravimetric in dark, volumetric in light. And this is the actual battery energy density, what the customer sees. And you can see as you move through into the more advanced versions, the lithium ion advanced with the silicon nanoparticles, improvements in gravimetric and in volumetric. The lithium sulfur, very, very good gravimetric energy density. As I said, that's the one that's going to allow e-aviation to take off, if you excuse the pun. And then the last one, which is really the holy grail, that to bring both of the silicon and sulfur techs together, and we can do that. That's our plan, is to have that working and get that out as a real competitor to the solid state technology. Our silicon nanoparticles, you can see on the left-hand side, these are very, very difficult products to make with existing technologies, and that makes them very expensive. The selling price, $200 up to $800 a kilo. Now we've got a manufacturing technique that allows those to be made at $50 a kilo to the hands of our customers next year. Next slide. In terms of our milestones, we put this slide together when we first kicked off the IPO investor meet process, and at the start of the year, and we set ourselves some pretty challenging targets for 2021 in terms of, you know, setting up battery manufacturing agreements with lead acid companies, putting in pilot manufacturing, getting our agricultural deployments put out there, putting the structure around the silicon nanoparticles, and then obviously finalising our IPO capital raise. So really pleased, you know, as the year comes to a close, really pleased to say, despite COVID, that all the targets we set ourselves were met. That takes us through to 2022. On the zinc bromide side, we're building capacity at the moment, and we'll be making 500 kilowatt hours of products, and that will then go into real life deployments for that off-grid application and for that test program that I mentioned to you earlier with the renewable energy company. On the performance additives, it's around demonstrating them in pouch cell format. You know, it's not our plan to make full-size batteries there. All we need to do is demonstrate that the additives work in pouch cells, and then we can go and get customer approvals and start engaging with them to either license or sell the additives. That takes us through to 2023, when we have first commercial sales of both zinc bromide batteries and the performance additives, and then on to 2024, where, as I mentioned, an EBITDA break-even point. Next slide. Thank you. A little bit, just a quick one. On to the next one, please. Next. So just a quick one about the structure of the company. As I mentioned, we listed on the 30th of November on the AIM. You know, really great response and a lot of support. You know, we often get asked why did we go as a primarily Australian company, why did we list on the AIM? But we've always had 50-50. Our shareholders have always been based, you know, Australia and the UK, and we've always had a UK parent. And so when we started the process, it was really a parallel process looking at both markets, and we just got a really, really strong response from the AIM, from the investors there, and from the AIM itself, and also from the UK government in terms of some of the encouragement or tax advantages for companies like us operating in the green economy. So really pleased to have brought on, you know, dozens of well-known names of institutional investors. You know, listed a few there: Janus, Octopus, Trium, that you might know, Fund for SE, and a sustainable energy impact fund out of Singapore, Regal Funds Management in Australia, and many, many more. So really, really pleased with the support that we got from those investors. I think that's my last slide for today. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and hopefully we've left some time to take some questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, got a couple of questions. Firstly, do your batteries operate best when being cycled often, or for storing and hold, or both? If the latter, how long can the batteries hold a charge?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's part of our larger presentation. So our batteries the sweet spot for our batteries is 4 to 12 hours. They don't mind going a little bit longer, so, you know, up to sort of 16, 20. But that's the sweet spot, and that's why they're so suited to what we call energy shifting. So taking energy from one time of the day and moving it to another. So, you know, off-grid applications, supporting a solar farm, supporting a wind farm, and so on. So that's really our sweet spot, between sort of 4 and 12, but even up to 20.
Question about the listing. Why did you choose the London market as a ASX?
Yeah, so look, that's what I was just saying just now. It was just a process where we compared both London and Australia, given that we had shareholders in both countries, and we just got a great reception from the investors here in the UK.
Another question has come through. When will the 1.2 kWh monoblock be available, and what is the projected price?
So those will be built out in, you saw that the timeline for 2022 is to have 500 kilowatt hours of batteries in getting them out into the market, into the hands. So the 1.2 kilowatt hour monoblock, it's really more a building block. You know, we would see that's not a particularly large size. You know, that's really the size that we're targeting is certainly upwards of 10 kilowatt hours. So basically we would string together the 1.2 into larger systems, you know, and up to, as I said, you know, with Horizon 1, up to 1 megawatt hour. So it's a typical thing. All batteries do that. They, you know, lithium ion and lead acid are the same. They take a small building block and they just build up into larger and larger by putting them into series or parallel. And in terms of pricing, our pricing is, as you can imagine, like any technology, really, it's very volume dependent. You know, we are hand building products at the moment, and we're building out capacity to go to the next scale of manufacture with our Australian partner. So the pricing that we have is based on, you know, talking to suppliers and getting you know, quotes for larger quantities, and we feel that at the once we get to a output of in the, you know, 300 megawatt hour range, that we will be comparable to lithium ion in that sort of size range that they're playing at that, you know, the sort of sub 1 megawatt, which is our first area that we're going to be targeting.
And one more question for the time being. It's early days, but what sort of interest has the IPO generated for your batteries?
A lot is the answer. It is early days, but we've been actually flooded with interest. One of the issues around lithium ion at the moment is that there's a real supply chain squeeze on lithium ion. There's so much of lithium ion capacity is going into EVs at the moment. A lot of big users that we're talking to, mining companies and so on, are very, very concerned about their ability to access batteries out in the sort of 2, 3, 4 year time frame, and they've all got very, very strong ESG mandates that they have to meet. And so the IPO was wonderful from that perspective in terms of raising our profile and getting end user eyes on the company, I would say.